Have you ever had the truth show up quietly, after midnight, when you were just trying not to step on toys? I didn't find the texts because I was suspicious. I found them because exhaustion makes you careless, and carelessness invites truth in when it's been waiting patiently. It was after midnight. The house was quiet in that fragile way that only exists after a toddler finally gives up on fighting sleep. Toys were scattered across the living room like landmines, and I'd left the kitchen light on low so I wouldn't trip over them on my way to the sink. Our daughter, Lily, was asleep at last. Her breathing came through the baby monitor in slow, even waves. My wife, Amanda, was in the shower. Her phone buzzed on the counter. I wasn't snooping. I didn't pick it up out of jealousy or suspicion. I glanced down the way anyone does when a screen lights up nearby. The message was already there, fully visible. Can't stop thinking about last night. No context needed. None wanted. Once you see one message like that, your brain stops protecting you. It opens the door and lets everything in at once. I picked up the phone, not shaking yet, and scrolled. Months of conversations unraveled in silence. Hotels booked on weekdays. Laughing emojis after jokes about me. Casual cruelty, the kind that hurts more than insults because it assumes you no longer matter enough to insult. I put the phone back exactly where it was. I didn't throw it. I didn't storm into the bathroom. I stood there longer than I should have, listening to the water run, listening to my daughter breathe, wondering how many nights I'd gone to bed early while a parallel life continued without me. I waited. That night mattered too much to ruin by yelling. When Amanda came out, wrapped in a towel, I didn't accuse her. I asked a question so neutral it scared me. Is there something you want to tell me? She didn't ask what I meant. She didn't stall. She sat down and told me she'd been unhappy for a long time. She said it just happened. She said she didn't plan it. She said a lot of things people say when they want an ending without consequences. Lily slept through all of it. The next morning, Amanda packed a bag, took Lily, and left. No schedule. No agreement. Just a text saying she needed space and would reach out when things calmed down. The house felt wrong immediately, like sound didn't travel the same way anymore. A week later, I filed for divorce on grounds of infidelity. I didn't have a prenup. I never thought I needed one. We built our life together while my income grew faster than hers, and I never treated that like leverage. I paid for things because I could. I assumed partnership was its own protection. I was wrong. Child support came first. It always does. $1,297 a month, plus school-related expenses. No custody plan, no visitation schedule, no acknowledgement that my daughter had been removed from my life without warning. I wasn't asked how often I wanted to see her. I was told how much I owed. I paid it, on time, every time. I asked for a DNA test. Not because I doubted Lily, but because certainty felt like the only thing left the system couldn't argue with. The test was delayed, then delayed again. Paperwork lost, appointments rescheduled, samples misplaced. 3 months passed, 3 months of payments, 3 months of silence, 3 months without seeing my child. When the results finally came back, Lily was mine. I felt relief first, then anger. Not at the truth, but at how long it took for the truth to matter. The court acknowledged Amanda earned $6,483 a month and was financially independent. No alimony. That felt fair. I earned $36,129 a month, and I learned quickly that number speaks louder than context. She appealed. District Court, interim alimony request. Same facts, new framing. Independence, apparently, didn't mean sustainability. Comfort became the argument. Infidelity never entered the record. Interim alimony was granted. And still, no visitation, no supervised time, no temporary access. The order said procedural. The tone said later. The calendar said otherwise. An emergency custody hearing was scheduled for the following week. That was when, I was told, the reasons would finally be explained. That's when I realized this wasn't about what happened in my marriage. It was about who controlled the story next. People talk about lost time like it's abstract, like something you misplace and later recover. That's not how it works. Lost time grows teeth. By the time Lily came back into my life in any meaningful way, she was 15, taller, quieter, sharper in ways children shouldn't need to be. She didn't slam doors. She didn't rebel. She moved like someone who had learned that resistance only made things worse. The years between 12 and 15 didn't disappear. They stacked. She told me things out of order at first. Fragments slipped into normal conversations. Casual details wrapped in jokes, like she was testing whether I could handle them. How her mother's new husband, Derek, hated locked doors. How he checked her phone at night. How arguments always happened when no one else was home. None of it sounded dramatic when she said it. That was what scared me. Abuse rarely arrives screaming. It arrives normalized. The worst part wasn't even Derek. It was Amanda. Not the yelling. Not the excuses. The silence. Amanda learned early how to weaponize accusation. She didn't need to scream innocence. She redirected suspicion. Every time Lily flinched or shut down, the narrative was ready. Your father traumatized her. She's acting out because of him. She's damaged from what he did to me. The lie aged well. Lies always do when they're never challenged. I filed motions, documented patterns, requested evaluations, school counselor reports, welfare checks. Every request was met with delay, not denial. Delay. Delay doesn't look biased. Delay favors whoever currently has control. Meanwhile, Lily learned survival. She learned how to read moods before footsteps, how to pack essentials mentally in case she needed to leave a room fast, how to cry quietly. She learned that bruises weren't useful unless they told the right story. That lesson came from her mother. One night, during an argument, Amanda grabbed her arm. Not to hurt, to mark. Later, when the colors bloomed, Amanda took photos. These are for your protection, she told her. Purple, green, yellow. History repeating itself like muscle memory. When Lily finally showed me where they came from years later, I understood something that made my stomach drop. This wasn't improvisation, it was inheritance. The emergency custody hearing came fast once Lily refused to return after a scheduled visit. She was old enough for her preference to matter, not decisively, but enough to complicate things. Amanda cried in court. Derek stayed calm. Connected people always do. They repeated the story. Polished now, upgraded. I was still the villain. Still the origin of all damage. The ghost they could blame without proof because ghosts can't testify. Except this time, Lily could. She didn't accuse at first. She described routines, control, Fear. Judges don't like emotion, they like inconsistencies. And there were many. Dates that didn't line up, injuries that appeared when no one else was home, school records that showed decline exactly when Derek moved in. We didn't push for arrests yet. We asked for oversight, court-appointed therapist, independent evaluator, monitored environment. That's when pressure built. Derek got careless. Amanda got angry. Control slipping makes people reckless. That's when we stopped reacting and started documenting. People imagine traps as elaborate things. Cameras, microphones, big reveals. Real traps look like patience. By then, Lily was already ahead of me. Trauma forces competence early. She understood the rules better than any lawyer. Never accuse first. Let them feel safe. Keep records where they don't think to look. She asked for an old phone. No service. No apps. Just storage. Hid it in a hollowed-out book. Recorded when Derek entered the room. Took photos too late to look staged. Audio too early to deny. Meanwhile, Amanda unraveled. Contradictions crept into emails. Stories shifted mid-sentence. Dates rewrote themselves. Then came the mistake. She tried to coach Lily. Say it like this. Use these words. Don't mention that part. Coaching leaves fingerprints. We waited. Weeks passed. Derek escalated. His voice sharpened. Threats stopped pretending to be hypothetical. One night, he grabbed Lily's wrist, not hard enough to fracture, hard enough to remind her who he thought owned the room. She pressed record. Amanda watched. Didn't intervene. Didn't look away. The next morning, Lily asked to visit me. Calm, casual, disarming. Once she was home, she handed me the book. I don't want to go back. That sentence changes things when evidence is already waiting. We contacted her therapist, evaluator, attorney. Not with accusations, with files. Audio, photos, messages, timelines. The emergency custody motion landed within 48 hours. This time, there were no delays. Derek was ordered to stay away. Amanda lost unsupervised custody immediately. That's when they panicked. Calls, messages, threats. Law enforcement waited. Patterns matter more than moments. The arrests didn't feel sudden. They felt overdue. But jail wasn't the end. When Amanda was arrested, Lily didn't come home with me. She went into foster care. Temporary placement. Clipboard. Caseworker. Practice tone. I watched them take her. She nodded once, like she was checking something off a list. That nod broke me. The foster home wasn't abusive. It didn't have to be. It was clean. Quiet. Rules taped to the fridge. Smiles worn thin from repetition. Lily stopped talking. Compliant, they said. Guarded. Fine. I filed for reunification. Denied. Procedure. Background checks. Home evaluations. Classes I'd already taken. Supervised visits. A room with a camera. Toys scrubbed of personality. She sat close but didn't touch. Meanwhile, the criminal case moved fast. Recordings played. Messages read. Photos entered. Amanda cried. Derek didn't. They were convicted. And still, Lily didn't come home. I stopped being patient. I spoke the system's language back to it. Reports. Timelines. Correlation. The turning point came quietly. A judge asked Lily where she felt safest. She said my name. The order was signed the same day. When she came home, she stood in the doorway for a long time. Then she took off her shoes, sat on the floor, and cried. I didn't interrupt. I filed restraining orders effective upon release. No contact. No loopholes. She laughs now. Real laughter. Still checks locks. Still keeps backups. Sometimes she jokes that the system tried to raise her but forgot to ask. She tells me I didn't quit. I tell her I never planned to. The system didn't save her. It delayed justice long enough to test whether I'd give up. I didn't. He didn't just get his daughter back. He outlasted everyone who bet he wouldn't. After the restraining orders were signed and the case files closed, people assumed the story had reached its natural end. As if justice was a finish line instead of a maintenance process. As if paperwork could cauterize years of damage. It didn't end. It changed shape. The house was quieter after she came home for good. Not peaceful, just quiet in the way places are when everyone is learning new rules without saying them out loud. She chose where to sit so she could see exits. She slept with the door cracked open. She kept her phone face down and within reach even when charging. Trauma doesn't leave when danger does. It lingers to make sure you don't forget how expensive safety was. We started therapy again. Not the kind that promises breakthroughs in 12 sessions. The slow kind. The kind that teaches you how to notice your body before your thoughts. The kind where progress looks like her asking for water instead of enduring thirst because standing up felt risky. The system stayed involved longer than anyone admitted was necessary. Monthly check-ins, quarterly reviews, surprise home visits that pretended to be friendly. I complied with all of it. Not because I trusted them, but because compliance was the only language they respected. Every form returned early. Every recommendation followed. Every suggestion documented. I wasn't parenting alone anymore. I was parenting under observation. She went back to school with accommodations, extra time, quiet rooms. Teachers instructed not to touch her without permission. Some followed the rules carefully. Others forgot. Each mistake took weeks to undo. Trust rebuilds slower than schedules allow. Her mother and her husband were sentenced months later. Nothing cinematic. No speeches. Just numbers read aloud and dates circled on a calendar that suddenly mattered very much to them. I attended the hearings alone. My daughter didn't ask to come. I didn't offer. I filed permanent restraining orders the same week. Not because I expected them to try anything immediately, but because time shortens memories. I wanted the law to remember even if people chose not to. Life settled into something almost normal. Almost. Birthdays were quieter than they used to be. Holidays arrived without announcement. She didn't like surprises. She liked knowing what came next. Predictability felt like kindness. Sometimes she would ask questions out of nowhere, about money, about laws, about how judges decide who gets believed. Not with anger, with curiosity sharpened by experience. She learned early that systems are made of people, and people bring bias with them like fingerprints. Years passed. The check-ins stopped. The files closed for real this time. Her room changed. Posters replaced lists. Music replaced silence. She started laughing in ways that surprised her own body, like it hadn't been consulted beforehand. One night, years later, she asked me why I never quit. The question wasn't dramatic. It was practical, like she was asking how an engine worked. I told her the truth. That quitting was never an option once I understood what giving up would teach her, that some lessons cost more than effort. That persistence isn't heroic, it's just stubborn love with paperwork. She nodded, satisfied. That was enough explanation. I still keep copies of everything, digital and physical. Redundancy is a habit you don't unlearn, but I don't read them anymore. I don't need to. The point was never to relive it. The point was to outlast it. People ask sometimes if I'm angry. I tell them anger burns too fast for a fight this long. What kept me moving was something quieter, colder. A refusal to let other people decide what my daughter's story would be. She's older now, strong in ways that don't announce themselves. Careful, but not afraid. Skeptical, but not closed. The system didn't save her. It tried to break her down into manageable pieces. It failed. Because she learned early what most people never do, that survival isn't about winning. It's about staying present long enough to be counted when the truth finally matters. Time kept moving in ways the court never tracked. Months passed without hearings. Years passed without phone calls from caseworkers. Silence returned, but this time it wasn't the kind that hid danger. It was the kind that forced adjustment. My daughter began to test normalcy in small, careful ways. She joined a club at school, then quit without explanation. She asked to go to a friend's house and came back early, claiming a headache. She learned what her limits were by brushing against them, retreating, then trying again weeks later. Healing wasn't linear. It zigzagged. There were setbacks. Nightmares that arrived unannounced. Sudden nausea in crowded places. Moments when a raised voice on television made her freeze, remote clutched tight like it could anchor her. I learned to notice the signs before she spoke. I learned not to ask what was wrong right away. Sometimes the question itself was too sharp. I adjusted my life around her rhythms. Work schedules bent. Travel disappeared. Friends learned to expect cancellations without explanation. I didn't apologize much. The people who mattered understood. The rest faded out naturally. Therapy evolved. We moved from survival to reconstruction. Identity. Boundaries. Consent. What healthy disagreement looks like. What love doesn't require you to endure. She listened more than she spoke. When she did speak, it was precise. Trauma trains efficiency. The legal aftermath lingered longer than anyone predicted. Appeals filed and denied. Motions quietly dismissed. Her mother wrote letters from inside that never reached us. I didn't block them. I let the system do what it does best, lose things slowly until they stopped trying. When release dates approached, notifications arrived automatically. Cold, impersonal reminders that danger doesn't always announce itself with footsteps. That's when the restraining orders mattered, not emotionally, practically. We reviewed safety plans like drills, routes, contacts, contingencies. She absorbed them without complaint. This was familiar territory, planning for worst-case scenarios. The difference now was choice. She chose to prepare, not because she was afraid, but because she understood leverage. She started keeping a journal again, not for feelings, for facts, dates, observations, a habit she never entirely abandoned. Documentation had saved her once. It became a quiet superstition. As she grew older, her relationship with anger shifted. It stopped pointing inward. It sharpened, focused. She didn't lash out. She asked questions, hard ones, about accountability, about systems that reward persistence over truth, about how many people fall through because no one can afford to wait as long as we did. I didn't always have answers. Sometimes I just listened. Sometimes listening was enough. College came, distance, but chosen this time. She packed deliberately, left nothing behind she might need later. When she hugged me goodbye, she held on longer than necessary. Then she stepped back first. Independence earned, not assumed. We still talk often, sometimes about ordinary things, sometimes about the past, never in order. Memory doesn't respect chronology. The house feels different now, lived in, but not tense. Doors close fully, lights stay off without fear. Silence doesn't mean waiting. I keep one folder locked away, not as a warning, as a record. Proof that patience, when paired with persistence, can outlast institutions designed to exhaust you. If there's a lesson in any of this, it isn't inspirational, it's procedural. Don't disappear, don't rush exposure. Don't assume truth will surface on its own. Stay present, stay boring, stay impossible to ignore. That's how we made it to the other side. Not clean, but intact. There's a version of this story people prefer. One where institutions work the way they're written, where timing feels fair, and where the right people notice the right details before damage has time to settle in. It's a comforting version. It's also incomplete. What mattered most wasn't anger or righteousness, it was consistency. Showing up when it would have been easier to step back, documenting when it felt pointless, staying engaged when silence would have been less painful in the short term. The system didn't collapse or rise to the occasion. It responded slowly, unevenly, and only when there was enough information that it couldn't look away anymore. That's not inspiring, but it is honest. We didn't reach the other side because everything worked the way it should. We got there because persistence filled the gaps where clarity should have been. If there's any takeaway at all, it isn't dramatic. It's practical. Pay attention. Keep records. Don't assume time will solve what effort avoids. Sometimes the difference between losing and surviving is simply being present long enough for the truth to be acknowledged.